Hello, Namaskar. My name is Haruki Murakami and I welcome you all back to our show On the Road, powered by the Antonym magazine. First of all, thanks to all of you because our show is doing really well both on Instagram as well as on YouTube. We are soon to open our Facebook channel as well. As soon as we do that, we'll let you know. But thank you for viewing us and thank you for reading our stories on our website, the Antonym Mag. This week, we have this brilliant personality who has translated into Bangla Haruki Murakami's works, Kafka on the Shore, Men Without Women, and The Elephant Vanishes. It gives me immense pride to have the acquaintance of someone who is so closely linked with Haruki Murakami himself, one of the most, or perhaps the most, influential author of our times. And of course, my personal favorite. So this episode is really very special to me. But unlike always, I will not introduce our guest this time. Because to let you know, before actually sanctioning Abhijit Mukherjee to translate Haruki Murakami's works, Murakami asked for his bio note, a long bio note about who the translator is, because Abhijit Mukherjee is the only authorized translator of Haruki Murakami in the subcontinent. So it is really very special. It is really interesting to know what he wrote to Haruki Murakami, which convinced him that this is the man in the subcontinent who can translate him in a different language. So I won't introduce him, but I'll ask him the question about what he wrote to Haruki Murakami, which convinced him. He spoke at length about various topics, but we kept our focus throughout the podcast on Kafka on the Shore. So we'll jump straight into the podcast, but before starting, I'd like to make an announcement. Because Haruki Murakami has this mysterious personality and seldom he comes in front of the public, I would like to make this podcast into two versions. Today, the podcast that you're watching, you'll watch it by your ears, because the rest of the podcast will be solely in the audio version. I want to enlighten the theater of your minds and the imagination that Haruki Murakami wants us to ignite, and Abhijit Mukherjee follows the same path. So this video will be in the audio version, and in the middle of this week I'll also post the video version of the podcast so that you get to know who Abhijit Mukherjee is and how does he look like. And before entering the podcast, I would also like to pay my gratitude towards Abhijit Mukherjee and his wife, who treated me with a lovely chocolate pastry, a brilliant cup of tea, and lovely hospitality. I really enjoyed all of it. At the end of the podcast, after having such a long conversation, he himself came to the bus stand to drop me and get me an auto rickshaw to the metro station. Thank you, sir. Enjoy the show. Sir, I introduce everyone, whoever is invited on the podcast, but this time I think I am not the right person. I think Murakami was, when he asked for your introduction, the introduction of a translator whom he will sanction if he is capable enough of translating him. Can you please tell us what you wrote to him?
We were quite nervous because the situation was something very unfamiliar. We applied for permission from Murakami to translate Kafka on the Shore, Umi Beno Kafka. And the application had to go to Curtis and Brown, Murakami's agent, and they are in London. Months after months, there was no response. We reminded them time and again, but still they were silent. Ultimately, Professor Abhijit Gupta, on his way to some other place in England, but he was in London for a short period, and he went to the office of Curtis and Brown and said, "Look, this time you have to tell us finally, yes or no. Otherwise, I'm not leaving." So they said, "Okay, let's see what we can do." A few weeks later, we received a letter that Murakami wants to know these things about the translator. Right. And that was quite something. First is, what is his educational qualification? What is his vocation? And exactly where he is now in those respects. Then who are his favorite writers? Has he ever translated? And then what are his plans of translation? Those were the basic questions. In detail, I'm supposed to respond to it. And also he said that you have to send me 12 layouts of possible cover.
12 layouts.
From them, one or two I will choose. That was Murakami's condition. So I said, I wrote my engineering background, what I am doing. And because Murakami is a favorite writer of mine, I was aware who were Murakami's favorite. I mean, whom he translated. So that was Scott Fitzgerald, Raymond Carver, Truman Capote. So I read them. And at times, these local little magazines, they ask us for some translated short stories, etc. I did translate these writers.
Right.
So that really went incidentally to my favor. That I said I have translated Truman Capote, I have translated Raymond Carver, I have translated Scott Fitzgerald. So I wrote them. And so it was quite a long document actually. And till now, I often boast to people around me that if I have at least one remarkable thing that I have achieved, it's that you all read about Murakami. First, for 10 seconds, read about. So then he agreed, and at the end of everything, and the total setting and everything was done, it has to be sent to the printer. And Murakami said, before that, you have to show me once more. So he's a very fussy person. Doesn't sound like that, otherwise his image is not that. But once you become a translator, and later during the launching of Umibeno Kafka in Bengali translation, Somudutate Kafka, during the launching program, the Consul General of the Japanese Consulate was also invited. He said that you are the only authorized translator in this subcontinent.
Okay.
So that means other people also tried, but with such a long list of requirements, they finally decided not to proceed any further. That is how I perceive myself through the eyes of Murakami.
Right. So, the conversation that we'll have today will specifically focus on Kafka on the Shore, which you have translated into Bengali, Somudutare Kafka. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask, because we have had conversations on the call, and before starting the podcast, we had a long conversation. I just wanted to know, who is Murakami according to you? Is he a writer? Is he a spiritual person? Is he a political person? Does he wish to trace history? Does he wish to write about the dark matter of mankind? Who is he? Is he a saint?
Well, about all these aspects, the one aspect which can be very simply identified as not applicable to him is about history. Because Murakami, I'm quite sure by now, basically his philosophy of this creation is very identical to what Buddhism preaches.
Right.
Very solidly based on that. And Buddhism does not acknowledge this flow of time. It's the limitation of human perception that makes an apparent flow of time, but it says that time doesn't go anywhere. It's an integrated thing. Everything remains in that integrated body of time at different slices of time. So there is a short story in the book Zono Shometsu, you translated as Hatita Udhao, Rome Samrajyer Poton, Prabal Jhoro Hawar Jagot. That was a story where he's discarding the very idea of history.
Right.
He said that you get a few isolated information about an event in history, and you form an idea which is bound to be incomplete, often untrue. Doesn't carry much of a meaning. So that way, history is not a very important factor. Sense of history, interpretation of history, then frontiers of history, those are not there in Murakami's writing. Murakami is more about universally existence of man and how a single man can perceive the possibilities of his life. the significance of his experiences, and how, as a wise person, events should be viewed as changes in life. Incidentally, the way he indirectly guides the reader makes the reader very confident, or rather, helps the reader to shed his general tendencies of suffering from anxieties, uncertainties. Everything appears to be so impermanent and not ever a stroke of bad luck. It was an inevitability, some kind of, but there is no reason to be disappointed or feel as incomplete and feel weak. So you are always looking forward with confidence and hopefulness if you are a regular reader of Murakami, because you know, as things are happening, they are not really following any pattern that you are apprehensive of. Yeah. So that is about history. The way he understands universally is men. As a member of many book clubs in the internet, my experience says that people are really surprised that Murakami understands an Indian, Murakami understands a German, understands and Latin American, just the way he understands the Japanese. So this universality, how could he really achieve? Somewhere his profound knowledge, which comes not only from reading or learning, but also from deep reflections over a long period of time, and perhaps initiated reflections. So to me, in my view, he's kind of a monk. You can play with your mind, you can play with your mood. In true lines, you can change the darkest of moods to very bright mood. This understanding of human mind is possible only in case of the monks. That is one thing, but there is a tendency of historically defining Murakami as a product of the 80s, when Japan was blessed with the bubble economy. They observed that that was a period of information explosion. And they say that Murakami is a product of that information explosion, because in his novels, so many kinds of information, events across different civilizations, different cultures, different priorities, the way they are very naturally being placed. He is an extremely well-informed person. And if he began as such a well-informed person at a very early age, so they are not really wrong that they attributed it to that information explosion when Murakami appeared in the scene. Right. That is one way, and Murakami's specialty as a writer is that he is there to help me, to help the entire world regarding in what view we should view our life, our possibilities, things happening around. He has very specific plan and very specific agenda about that, but he never preaches. Yeah. He knows that once he directly preaches, it's very natural that questions will develop. I'll be skeptic about it. Right. In case of many people, they become somewhat resistant to those ideas. They start questioning. So that will be a kind of dissipation of effort. Right. So what he does, the narrative style is such that there are certain things happening, apparently no way connected to what he wants to preach. Right. But he is giving you a kind of guidance. Your way of imagining, perceiving things are shown a very definite path, so that finally you arrive at a certain point. And Murakami's primary intention is that you yourself arrive at that point. Yeah. Unless you do that, Murakami may impress you in a novel or two, but then in no time you will forget it also. It will not become a part of you. It will not stay with you. So that is very observable.
Ever since you said this to me over call, that Murakami can be compared to a saint, I've been thinking about it. And a lot of my friends, especially people from my age group, are avid Murakami readers. They ask them this question: do you think Murakami is a saint? So they also fell into a deep ponder. All of us came to a conclusion that ever since we started reading Murakami, I started reading Murakami when in 2018, 7 years back. Ever since then, the very aesthetics of my life, the way I express, the way I write, the way I think of people, the way I think of human bodies, the way I think of sexuality, everything subconsciously has been shaped by him. He did not do it vehemently, he did not do it on force, but somehow I was convinced that this is the reality that I need to perceive, which I wasn't perceiving maybe before 2018.
That was your journey. He guided. You never knew that he's guiding.
No.
That's in his book. What I talk about when I talk about running. He said that the primary intention is to continue running because it's most valuable. Now that I have become popular, right? Many people come up with many business with me. I have many occasions of coming in contact with other people, many things to do over a period of 24 hours. So if I have to come up with an excuse why I cannot continue running, there is a truckload out.
Right.
But if there are one or two reasons why I should continue, I always keep them polished and presentable so that I can convince others that running is very important. It's not negotiable. Then what he says, it is connected with that, as we were discussing the idea of void, certain things which are active but not visible, they're always there.
Right.
They are participating in every action we are involved in. So he said, lots of things we do, but there is no apparent result that we are seeking from it. Or maybe we are seeking a result, it didn't happen. So we mark it as a failure, kind of failure. But those experiences are remain. How do you know that they are not creating a particular future for you? Silent, without letting you know that they are there, pushing you towards them. We are aware of Tagore's that famous song, জীবনে যত পূজা হলো না সারা জানি হে জানি তাও হয়নি যে ফুল না ফুটিতে ঝরেছে ধরণীতে যে নদী নুরু পথে হারালো ধারা জানি হে জানি তাও হয়নি. So Japanese literature and Tagore inseparable. And when I first started translating Murakami, at the important crossings of the story, I found there is Tagore with a song waiting for me.
Okay, so Murakami, then comes Tagore.
Tagore, they can be related. This can be a very meaningful, significant topic for a young researcher to take it.
I wanted to ask you directly. I wanted to get into Kafka on the Shore, but I think we should give it a few more minutes. How do you think Tagore and Murakami can be related?
Basically, because of Murakami's adherence to Buddhist philosophy of the creation, and Tagore and Buddha both are Dvaitavadi Vedantics. Right. One is through Upanishad, and Buddhism has many things common with Upanishad, but only that they do not believe in soul. But the definition of existence, I think, very identical. Somewhere that played in Kafka on the Shore, at a certain point of time, the boy feels that as if he's within a certain mold. There is a kind of shell around him that has become himself.
Right.
And that was undesirable. He has to come out of it. So as a Bengali reader, this is nothing new to me, because এই আবরণ ক্ষয় হবে গো ক্ষয় হবে তোমার নলে. The entire story is that home, that the shell, we come out of this idea of a limited existence within this body, that we are not, that we are connected to everybody else, and that is what the meaning of my existence.
Right.
That is how Murakami explains through the novel. But in Tagore we have seen it was already that. আপন হতে বাহির হয়ে বাইরে দাঁড়া বুকের মধ্যে বিশ্ব লোকের পাবি সারা This is a very central line of Murakami's Kafka on the Shore.
Right.
This is what he wanted to tell the Japanese readership through this 2-volume novel. আপন হতে বাহির হয়ে বাইরে দাঁড়া. Come out of yourself and stand in the open.
Right. I think, sir, today we have time constraints. We'll just stick to Kafka on the Shore. But someday when you have time, even if I'm busy, I'll abandon everything. I'll come to you. We'll discuss only on Tagore's relation with Murakami.
Tagore's relation with all the Japanese writers.
All the Japanese. Because you have translated, you have already translated Ogawa. You have translated Ogawa, right? Sir, I'll get into Kafka on the Shore. Sure. Why do you think Murakami felt the necessity of writing something like Kafka on the Shore?
Right. It was a kind of, excruciating pain, I would say. A crisis, of course, in this case. People started saying that Murakami is so westernized. He writes the novels or short stories originally in English. That's how Japanese people knew. And then he translates it back into Japanese and then declared that this is written in Japanese. These are so westernized in every respect. That was not true. So Murakami thought, and he planned, I'm sure, over a long period of time, meditated, I imagine, that how to tell people that where they are going wrong. What happened is this: from the first half of the 17th century till the latter half of 19th century, Japan was in isolation. And then Commodore Perry's fleet of battleships from America came to Japan and said that you have to abandon this isolation, you have to integrate with the world mainstream of trade, commerce, and politics, etc. Otherwise, we will attack. So Japan surrendered, and the political system changed, the economy changed, and Japan came in close contact with the West. And Western influence started entering the Japanese society, which was in isolation for centuries, like a torrent. If you will read Tanizaki's Makioka sisters, Sasame Yuki, you can understand what kind of shock it was for the society. And they started forgetting about their culture, their heritage, in everyday lifestyle, in their political system, in their human relationships, in their architecture, in their art. In every respect, Western influence was visible, and it was almost bubbling up, existing Japanese culture. So there appeared certain writers. Natsume Soseki was the first, who was trained in England to teach English language. He taught English in Tokyo Imperial University. But he identified that if Japan starts imitating Western civilizations and their culture, Japan will lose invaluable assets of their history, of their life philosophy. So their pursuit of beauty, which is a Buddhist idea, that life is a pursuit of beauty, will no longer be in action. So out of that fear, he started analyzing and writing his novels in details, showing how imitating the West would be a disaster. And from there took up Tanizaki, Kawabata Yasunari, particularly Meijin, the master of Go. It's a direct statement that if we start getting influenced by West's priorities, then it will be a disaster. Our society, our life will lose all that we have towards a beautiful life. Actually, Tagore, when after his Nobel Prize, went in 1916 to Tokyo Imperial University on 11th June 1916. In his lecture, he said that this noise created by the greed of West must not influence you so much that you lose your heritage and the way you solved your problems, the way you pursued creation of beauty, etc. Please see that these are not lost. So that influenced, I believe, the Japanese writers as well. And these writers, since they were successful, the Japanese started becoming very proud, duly so, but maybe disproportionately about the uniqueness of their civilization, their culture. That itself again started creating a shell. And Murakami felt that he is a victim of this process. He is being pushed further away, not a Japanese writer at all. That was how they started declaring him. That is because of this shell that the Japanese state of things were prioritizing. So he said that I have to tell them no identity in itself, isolated from other things, can have at all a durable meaning. Meaning is always, it evolves always from the relationship we have with everything possible, infinite number of things. Right. So, in the novel, Nakata, who is full of intuition, intuitively felt that he has to go in the direction of west and has to cross a long bridge. Right. Obviously, now Murakami says that you have to extend your attention towards what is happening, what the Western people are thinking, what their civilization is all about. Cross the bridge. Just get to know about it. And for that, Murakami translated extensively with Truman Capote, Scott Fitzgerald, Raymond Chandler, Raymond Carver, because he thought if the Japanese people are in a position to appreciate these writers, then only they can appreciate what Murakami is writing. So he wanted to break the barrier. Now, to break the barrier, there should be a broader base, philosophical base, on which this action or this suggestion of breaking the barrier, from which it can gain validity. Right? So there he is saying that distance is an illusion. Time difference is an illusion. There are such instances in the novel. But unless we accept these, we cannot proceed in the storyline. So if that is so, if everything that we are looking at is only a very partial representation of it, in a way he said somewhere that everything is a metaphor. That means so certain common characteristics were identifying a thing with respect to another thing. So it is another metaphor.
The signifier signified.
The signifier signified. And he was angry, obviously. He, immediately after this statement that everything is a metaphor, he referred to the Oedipus complex. And then, in a very obvious manner, he forced us to liken it with what Japan was suffering. As they are accusing Murakami to be foreign, the Japan is too much in love with its mother culture. So that is like the Oedipus complex. He said that what is so very intensely tragic about one isolated incident that happened in Greece so long ago, why should the entire world remember it as a very grave tragedy? That is because it will repeat in other situations, and in case of Japan, it is repeated.
So can you speak a bit more on the Oedipus complex of
Japan?
Actually, I was recently talking to one of my friends who has extensively read Murakami. He was saying that the Western gaze that we have and the way we read Murakami, because all of us students of English literature, he said we are trained with the Western gaze. And when we read and perceive Murakami through that gaze, we almost put the Oedipus complex on him, we put the magic realism on him.
That's something which irritates me, I should say. You start reading any piece on Murakami, in no time, surrealism, magic realism. Murakami doesn't care about this. What he says is that reality is not in its entirety revealing itself to you. What you can perceive, you can see only, identify only those things. Right. So why perceive, why imagine things, why describe things which repeatedly, frequently happen? Why limit yourself, your world of your sky of your mind, to only what is repeatedly happening? Start thinking of things which could have happened. There is a line in Kafka on the Shore that what has happened, knowing what has happened is important, but imagining what could have happened is more important. So you say that's how you can push the horizon to larger distance, and your perception can become much wider. You can identify far more variations, possibilities, and the significance of life, possibilities of life. So start imagining things, not what you have experienced. Right? You do not have to really care about whether they are logical, whether they really happen or not. Like in the song, there is a thing, the lizards are dreaming in moonlight. You never write in a song or in our lyric, such a line doesn't get a place. Nobody ever described any such thing. Okay, why not? Think about it. So the vista becomes wider and wider. And Japanese literature, Japanese everything, is actually a representation of infinity through a finite.
Right.
So Murakami again wants to remind the reader that what you are facing is infinite. Now, if you are stubborn about only certain finite things, you are actually very far away from truth.
Right.
And that's why Kafka Tamura, the boy, was taken through a tunnel to another world at the end of our everyday realities world, where nothing gets lost. That's why it says that there is nothing as called a flow of time. Time doesn't flow. Time stays. It stores everything within it. And the best things are, as an example, because basically he's dealing with human perception. So what stays? In the television, Edelweiss is the song. Always it plays. Because that is what we can readily relate. Is there anything about time which is not losing its appeal? Edelweiss is one such song. So that's how he is actually trying to push my perception through my efforts, not through his descriptions. He's just instigating me. Think irrationally. Think through things that has never happened. Like the fishes are pouring from the skies, but still do that. Because there are possibilities which will open up your mind's eye.
Sir, I immediately wish to ask this, that when I read Oedipus Rex, I understood this is this character of Oedipus who has killed his own father without knowing that he was killing his own father. Then he married his own mother, and later when he realized, he obviously got traumatized, he left the kingdom, he blinded himself. When we come to Kafka Tamura, from the very beginning of the novel, we are said he has this bad omen. He is cursed, that he'll have relations with his mother, with his sister. And eventually, by the middle of the novel, we see that a part of him, the boy called Crow, actually kills his father. How do you relate the entire Oedipal complex to the story of Kafka Tamura and Kafka on the Shore?
That model is very faithfully repeated here, just to show that that model is not an isolated event in Greece several thousand years back. It can always happen if you are not opening up new thought, if you are not moving forward, expanding your perception. Then it will always, you'll see that your father, what is archetypal father? Who dictates in which direction you should head. But then the conflict between them. You cannot expect that there will be such a reliable father figure who will smoothly give you direction towards the future. There will be conflicts. And then, if you withdraw yourself within a shell of limited cultural possibilities, legitimacy, then it is like having a sexual relationship, a romantic relationship with your mother. So this is basically a scheme. The name is Oedipus complex, but it can repeatedly happen to different societies at different points of time, at different corners of the world. And Murakami is actually alerting the Japanese that situ is that we are not gripped by the possibility of such a tragedy.
Is there a historical context to the use of Oedipus complex in Kafka on the Shore?
I don't think. No, he just thought that model, he thought that I just have to remind the readership that this can happen, and they will start judging the present state of affairs, whether we are leading towards that disaster. But to Murakami, this much I know, that he and the lady, perhaps by that time they are married, they went to Greece without telling anybody. Nobody knew about that. They spent there several months. They didn't know the local language. They just observed it. At that time, possibly he knew the historical details of that event of when the Oedipus complex happened. What were the forces? What was the state of civilization? What was the political situation? What was distribution of power? And possibly he found a reflection of that in the Japanese situation. And maybe, I'm just guessing, there is no such suggestion anywhere written that he said that I will present it. I will just at least once remind them that this is a possible disaster.
So my next question would be, see, all these questions are fan questions. And because very rarely do we get to meet someone whose writing Murakami himself has read, as you said, for 10 seconds at least. I wanted to know that at the very beginning of the novel, we have said that Kafka has to be the strongest 15-year-old in the world. And when asked at the hotel, even when asked by the supposed sister whom he thinks to be his sister, he says he takes a pseudonym. He tells he's Kafka Tamura. Why does he take the name of Kafka? Why Kafka? And initially, in the very first chapter, we are said there's a boy called Prof. And there's absolute explanation in the story itself that in Japanese, Kafka means crow. Why does this 15
No, not in Japanese. In original Kafka's mother tongue, Kafka means crow.
Kafka means
11.
So, why does he take the name of Kafka Tamura?
Well, the present generation of writers, all of them are openly declaring their indebtedness to Kafka's idea that we are at a certain point of our, if there is a universal civilization, where we are judging even ourselves through the eyes of others, through the criteria set by others. The self-realization is not happening. We are not free in contemplating ourselves. So, Life and Times of Michael K. is by Murakami. K is the central character in Oran Pamuk's The Snow, and Kafka on the Shore is there. So now Murakami says that the external criteria are there, but you have to start feeling about this. And Kafka was who switched on the process. So Murakami found that this is a very potent connection that Kafka means crow, because by myth, which is in India and in Japan also, crows are symbols of wisdom, wise beings. Bhavana Vedaradi or something in Hindi they say. So there is a source of wisdom within himself, that is the crow, which often suggests things. They say the counter alter ego or something, nothing like that. That's a Western idea. This is a source of wisdom within himself, which often helps him to relate with the outside, with the situation. And since Kafka is the person who has somehow helped in perceiving what kind of crisis you are going through, these two things have accidentally become very kind of, happened at the same time, coincidental. So Murakami took the opportunity that there is a crow which is wise, whose name is Kafka, and Kafka also reminds us of the new task of the new challenge of the ensuing civilization, that we have to be self-aware, not within the shell that others have created for ourselves.
So in the novel, I have read it twice, 2.5 times. Every time I felt this overwhelming sense of fate. Now, the way I understand fate is absolutely derived from my reading of English literature coming from the West. What is Murakami's understanding of fate?
He was definitely knowingly dragging this issue into, because when they went to that library, they lost their way, right? Going towards some other place. But by mistake, they turned and arrived at a certain place and found the library is there. So the uncertainty, which is giving rise to the word fate, we cannot explain the uncertainty, and that's why the language uses the word fate. But there are things occurring beyond my perception, beyond my eyes, which I cannot observe. I'm not aware of its existence. They are making these things happen together and giving a meaning to it. So it is a way of, look, as Murakami readers, we all have become more reassured, isn't it? This is his way of inducing this reassurance. So there is a meaning to everything happening. So many things you do not know, you are not aware of, they are helping you, pushing you towards that. Incidentally, towards a certain desired situation, outcome. So now, if as a reader of a story makes a certain kind of emotional impact on us, and story makes us opening up towards ideas. That's why he has gained so much of. He must have practiced a lot, thought a lot, spent a lot of time in creating a good storyline, because story makes us open up to ideas. If I open up to ideas that there are strong things, agencies, acting all around, we will ensure a certain meaningful outcome, then our level of anxiety, worry becomes less and less. And we start opening up towards the possibilities of other things active beyond our ken, beyond our perception. And that is what is true. He wants us to imbibe that way of considering things.
So the idea of fate, which I encountered while reading Murakami, was at the very beginning of the story, he talks about chance encounters. And everything that happens in Murakami's stories are chance encounters in a way or the other. So there's also this line that no matter how many turns you take, how far you run from it, but destiny catches up. And it will make you do the way it wants you to do, the way it wants you to do. So isn't it there, the idea of fate?
Well, again, fate is a universal concept, but Buddhism is, the central thing about Buddhism is the karmic law. Fate is not accidental. Fate is inevitable, because the karmic law will ensure. Right? Now this quantum computer, it has an aspect of entropy, etc. And qubits, long strings of qubits. So if you drop some of them, then what happens? If you include them, then how the calculation is rightly done. Those things are forcing the computer scientists, inevitably, almost everybody felt like that over a long period of time, karma sets things right. That was an idea, whether we accepted it or whether we attached any value to it. But you were aware that whatever you do, it will come back to you, it will put you in place, so that you cannot do anything disproportionately significant than how significant you are. So Murakami, in another way, is saying the same. That this long range of things happening, you are not aware of it, but they will ensure a certain outcome of this, which is helpful to you if you are a good person with good intentions. So this karmic law is a Buddhist concept. Of course, Upanishadic concept as well. Murakami, of course, will not name it. He will not ever be preaching about it, but always keeping your mind open to that. You are also desiring that those things, let that thing happen. Then the story progresses further. So karmic law, just intuitively, Murakami is making you open to the idea of karmic laws.
So don't you think it is a problem with Murakami that because he has got such craftsmanship in writing, in the lucidity of his language, in the prose that he constructs, that at times it is difficult for readers to understand his spiritual standpoint, his political standpoint, or maybe his moral standpoints. Because in Brechtian theatre, the entire flow of storytelling is broken, is shattered, so that people focus on the standpoints, the political standpoint, the aesthetic standpoint.
It announces.
It announces. But in Murakami, it is so lucrative, it's so lucid, that there's a high chance that a reader, even a trained reader, can get lost in the prose. And the standpoints are somehow muffled. So don't you think it's a problem with Murakami?
Well, if you want to resist, then it's a problem with Murakami. But Murakami knows that if he preaches, if he adopts that structure of narration, then he'll start questioning things, he'll start resisting ideas, so he will not do that. He is a preacher, the strongest of preachers, knowing pretty well that other writers, initially they believed in certain things, at the middle of their career, they believed in certain other things, they ended up with some other belief. In case of Murakami, it will not happen. At least that's my feeling, my image of him. He knows what I want to preach, what I will not preach. I will force him through a journey in that direction. And my stories, because he is kind of, I say, power of a monk, he knows how a certain storyline will make me think. Although I'm an Indian, somebody is a German, somebody is a French, somebody is a Peruvian, still he knows the central truth of human mind, how the narration will cast a shadow on the reader's mind, wherever he is, whoever he is. And that way, he makes me arrive at a certain point. Never ever Murakami explicitly described or suggested any such point. So I start thinking that that point is mine. So I own it. My ego is related to it. So now I am the strongest protector of it. So that's how he wins. Extremely, he was clever, extremely wise person.
So I have now a range of questions related to the plot. So people, I'm just breaking the fourth wall for once. The people who have not read the novel can discontinue watching this video from here on, because the rest of it are all spoilers. I just wish to know, because I have no answers. The first time I read Kafka on the Shore, I called up my tuition teacher asking, please read the novel. Tell me, what does this mean? Or why does it end here? Is it an incomplete book that I have taken up? Or is it really coming to an end here that Kafka Tamura is now a part of a brave new world? Why does it stop here? There are questions which are not answered. Then I went on Reddit, I went on Quora, I read Murakami's interviews. He said it's a puzzle. You need to solve it. But I was too young to solve the puzzle by myself. But now I have you. So, and I'm mature enough to understand what you're telling.
I'm really feeling very thrilled, When I was translating it, that was my first project.
Right.
So I had no idea whether I'm successfully doing it, meaningfully doing it or not. And I was extremely busy with my job at the department. But from time to time, I would suggest myself, okay, at night I'll sit with it, and then I'll get to know what happens to Nakata next. And horrible things are happening. He meets Johnny Walker, who cuts the heads of those cats and stores them somewhere. And he wants to make a big flute out of that. What a things wild. But those things stayed with me. I'm attending meetings. I'm correcting answer scripts of students in exams, guiding my students in research, or giving some lecture somewhere on certain subjects. But those ideas are always at the back of my mind. I'm trying to connect them to it. Murakami's language is such that now this is a very important point to me. As I have translated quite a few, some 6-7 writers, Murakami's prose is unbelievably lucid and easy, cosmopolitan. Anybody from any linguistic background can easily translate it. Mishima is the toughest, and Murakami is the easiest. I'm lucky that I started with Murakami. I would have in much trouble starting with complicated writers, but Murakami is so sure. His preparation is so solid. In every respect, I will force the person. The sentences will be so lucid, he will not question any word in it. Nowhere he will stumble upon anything else undesirable. So lucidly, these things will go there. They will draw a picture. They will make him think in this line, and there I will feed him with a certain idea, which will ensure what is the next trajectory he chooses. So we can, if Murakami lives for 1,000 years and writes maybe 600, 700 novels,
We hope.
if we too live and we too continue the journey, still, what preparation he takes will always be remaining unknown to us. Because that's a much bigger world. Murakami's preparation is unthinkable. And a very small, interesting part of it is, even at 79, running 10 kilometers every day and 5,000 meters swimming.
Right. A lot of YouTubers who love to read books, they try to follow the Murakami regime for a week. None of them succeeded over 3 days. To my knowledge, some of them tried. I watched their videos. None of them succeeded beyond 3 days. It is impossible. It is to run that far every single day and then write, produce, listen to music. It's a world on its own. So there's now the questions of the fanboy. I just wish to know, what is your take on these? Why is Nakata being portrayed like this? What really happens to him?
Right. First is that Nakata became senseless with a lot of the school children.
And what was he observing in the sky? The swift movement of the eyeballs. What was he observing and why does it become like that?
Right. You have to know about, as far as I know, about a thing called Satori. Satori is Nirvana. What is Nirvana? As I am born with a human set of perceptions, I look at things in a certain way. If in the next incarnation I am born as a bee, a flower will be a different thing for me. If I am born as a horse, the field will be a different thing for me. So, with the nature of things, which is not relative, with the nature of things is what haikus attempt, or rather a must condition for writing haikus is you have to describe only Buddha nature of things. Buddha nature is unalterable nature. As we are changing ourselves, the nature of things are changing. Buddha nature is when you see it from all possible points, then the Buddha nature of the things is apparent to us. How can it happen? In history, it has happened. A sudden, intense shock often made people forget about themselves. You have to lose the self. To observe Buddha nature of things, you have to lose yourself because the self is limiting you. So how to lose the self? A sudden occurring of certain things which shocked you so much that you may lose your sense of self. That's why many of the monks symbolically you'll see, because once a monk was struck by a stick by somebody else, that shock made him attain Satori. So symbolically, these people, they strike themselves on their back just to show their intention that they are actually seeking or pursuing the course of Satori. So Satori happened to Nakata and he lost his self. That's why he never said I or me. Always said Nakata or
Nakata. In the third person.
In the third person. And then I have to explain the idea of void, as I told you. If I have to observe a thing and have the complete idea of the thing, complete meaning of the thing, then there should not be any obstacle, any obstruction between us. There should be a void. How to create this void? This void can only be created, this is not nihilism, only can be created when you know the relationship of that object with every other object. And there's interactions and relationship between those things. The entire network, a dense network of connectivity, when that is within your knowledge, then you fully understand the thing and the void has been created. But these ideas must not be artificial or untrue, not unnatural. What Kafka suggests, we are judging things through unnatural connectivities. Now, Hagita-san, the truck driver, is giving Nakata a lift and saying that you say you have no meaning. Your words have no meaning, you are a meaningless person. But you like You enjoy eating eel fish. You like steamed rice and eggs poured on them, wakabe muri, and you enjoy riding trams. So this way, your meaning is becoming clearer. The connectivities are getting established, and these connectivities must be natural. Because of this natural connectivity, Nakata can talk to the cats. There is no human language or cat's language, nothing like that. Connectivity automatically, naturally comes. Now, because Nakata has to a large extent attained this transference of void kind of nature because of the naturalness, now when light comes, the shadow is not really that dark.
Yeah.
When I was translating, I didn't really know why the shadow is lighter. When it was lighter. Later, when I came to know about the concept of void, etc., then I knew because of its naturalness that void is created, at least partially, and shadow is there.
The idea of the shadow being detached from the body or getting lighter is also
Everything written. Writing is a corrupted way of expression. That's why Nakata cannot read.
Yeah. And he has a very, at least in Philip Gabriel's translation, he has a very cryptic way of saying things.
Nakata is not very intelligent. Nakata doesn't understand much. Nakata's words do not have meanings. That's what he will often repeatedly tell people.
Yeah, but the cats always tell him that you're wise. It's the second question that I could never really understand. Why is it so? In Oedipus complex, Oedipus gets to know that he actually killed his father and he actually had an affair and a marriage, a sexual affair with his mother. In Kafka on the Shore, the boy called Crow goes and kills his father. So Kafka Tamura never knows. And whether Sakura and Miss Seiki are actually his sister and mother, there are indications. Kafka Tamura, one, just wishes that such people were his sister and mother. But though he has got sexual relationships with them in different ways and forms, he's not very uncomfortable with it. Is it because he knew of the curse, that it was bound to happen? Or is it because he's just unaffected, because he doesn't know whether this is his sister and this is his mother?
I think this is just a story. The way he wants to create the characters, I think he was concentrating more on the reader than making these things very clear about Kafka. He kept them slightly blurred, etc. But what he's telling the readership is that multiple possibilities of relationship. You cannot say this is my mother, and then only the sexual relationship become illegitimate, uncomfortable, you feel with, etc. So what is your tradition is tradition. Don't call it your mother thing. What is related, like Sakura, is related. But don't bring another significance kind of thing, a relationship between
a sister, a mother,
etc. Because that almost forces you limited possibilities.
Okay. With Miss Seiki, the younger form of Miss Seiki, in the form of a ghost, that visits Kafka Tamura, and with whom he also has a sexual intercourse. As a reader, when I read it, I did not understand why exactly is this happening. What is your take on that? Why the division of souls? Because the division of souls is there throughout the novel. Why the division of souls, and why was it necessary to show the sexual interaction between Miss Seiki's younger version and Kafka Tamura?
I think I'm not very sure. Never really wanted to be very sure. I thought he wanted to keep it a blurred situation that there are things that can be perceived as your mother culture, mother idea. But in course of time, you deal with it without that much of reverence, that much of prejudice or kind of prejudiced vision, where only this much of interaction is allowed, even that is not allowed. So this mother creates a kind of longing. Longing is okay. But in the longing, do not put anything else. I mean, which somewhere he mentions Hegel's theory that A wants B, that relationship is okay. But when A wants to put A himself within that relationship, the trouble starts. Hoshido was talking about one girl who studied philosophy, who told him that. So, Psyche is a woman, you want affection from her. You are impressed by her beauty as a woman. But then when you have to think her as your mother, it creates complications, which takes the story over. So that kind of fixed structure, fixed seats, like the front row is for them, this man must be on the right side of him, this kind of structure, he says, which are only metaphorically he can refer to them. Human civilization idea of family will go nowhere away from that. But he says that this is always possible, that metaphorically when there is a tradition, there is certain wealth of your tradition to which you are attracted. And it has given rise to your sensibility as a creator. Do not be very prejudiced about what are the personalities. Right, that's what he says. So because the kind of discomfort it creates within us. Right. So we said that this discomfort, the genesis of this discomfort is in the fixed pattern of relationship.
Right. Maybe that is the reason of the younger version of Miss Psyche coming in as a ghost, to remove that complication maybe.
And ultimately, in that other world, at the edge of our everyday's world, there Miss Psyche says, if you remember me, I'm happy. That means, if you remember me, be aware.
Till the time you remember me, I do not, it doesn't matter to me.
Right. So do not, deny your connectivity with anything. Remember that. But do not put yourself in a position which is in a preset structure.
Okay. So I was talking to another Murakami reader. She is a woman. And she said she loves Murakami. But the thing that she dislikes about Murakami's prose is the vivid description of a woman's body. The descriptions that are at best sensual, and they're so elaborate and at times overused also. Especially not maybe in Kafka on the Shore, but maybe in novels like 1284 and others, at times overused also, where the woman's body is described so many times and so vividly so. Why do you think it is a necessity for Murakami?
No, I think as a reader, we are much influenced by the West's equations of morality. Because of Christianity's, kind of self-tormenting, guilt consciousness, etc. So nudity makes us very uncomfortable as a subject to deal with any other person. But in Japan, in the one sense, the hot springs, traditionally, men, women, all of them shed their dress and fully naked, they take the bath. And that experiment has worked. Not that women lost interest in men, men lost interest in women, but the extra layer of kind of magicality or something, which is not always very enjoyable, which is always putting us into discomfort, making negative impacts, that they have got rid of. Tagore himself has very specifically wrote about it, that they have remarkably succeeded in dispelling this unnecessary shrouding of each other's image and idea, etc. People know how they look at it, but still there is an image that if I see it, it is something bad. Right. I should be uncomfortable with it. So that's why Murakami wants you to come out of the West's mold of literature appreciation. So he wants to strike you time and again. But look, get used to it. There is nothing actually there.
Right.
It is in your mind. So as you carry on reading my novels, one day you will feel
Free of the inhibitions.
this kind of.
Now, this very interesting character in the novel, and maybe one of the most fan favorite characters, not in the good sense, but Johnny Walker.
Yeah, he wants to make. Have you read this thing, the Wind Up Bird Chronicle? No. Okay. Have you read Madadayo? Listen, the film,
The-
Kurosawa.
Yeah, Kurosawa, yeah. It was his last film, isn't it? Yeah.
Perhaps. The cat has gone somewhere, it has disappeared, and life has become, family life has become intolerable. So, cat is a very strong symbol of domesticity. Right. And in this Wind Up Bird Chronicle, the cats from all the neighboring houses, they come to a certain place, which is a dwelling place, and meet each other. When the cats have come out, domesticity is for the time being absent in human life. And there is a well, dark, deep, and someone goes down that well at night, wait for something bad to happen, etc. So domesticity is a kind of very comforting, good, solid way of life in every respect. And cats are a symbolic representation of that. Now, Johnny Walker, he wants to attract many people through a long flute that he'll make by killing the cats. That means disturbing the domesticity within families. They will turn consumerist. That's the kind of luring people to consumerism. That will be the role of the flute. At least I understood like that. And Johnny Walker itself, a brand. What is the brand that we all know about? What is popular in Japan, we don't know about it. What I know about popular in my country, other people do not know. But Johnny Walker is a brand everybody knows. So to represent Johnny Walker, and also Johnny Walker's face is a very satanic one, so he used it. All right. So basically, the brand, the consumerism, and loss of domesticity, loss of pleasure from domestic efforts.
Is the cat a symbol of?
But it was brilliant, isn't it?
It was
At night, I was translating it. Believe me, I was around 50 at the time. Yeah, more than 50, much more than 50. I didn't feel. I mean, at night around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I was translating. Just looking through the window, child is dark. I really faint kind of shiver. This is the first time a novel made me shiver.
So, like you were above 50. I'm 23 right now. So 7 years back, I was somewhere around 16. I had never read something like this. A man devouring cats' hearts and describing it. That it's lush, it's warm, it's shivering, and it's there in the mouth, the blood gushing in his tongue.
And another very sharp description is Johnny Walker wants to kill himself. He wants to end his life.
Right.
That is what craving is all about. Craving wants to reach a point where the craving is no longer there.
Right.
This is how sharp the man is. How the story is. This is unusual. A man is so cruel, but he wants to die.
Right.
And the dark woman, that black dog,
The black dog.
who floating from the side of the mouth, he guided him towards that. He knows how to write stories and then how to create an impression which is not story dependent, but it will last. It will stay with that.
So I wanted to come to this question at the end of the podcast, but now that you have taken it up, I think I should ask this. As a reader of 16, as a reader of 20, then as a reader of 23, Murakami has an impact on me because he really makes me think, imagine beyond what I already know. But you have been a professor for longest part of your life. Then you have read so much. At the age of 50, above 50, and now that you're retired, is the impact same of Murakami? You have seen so much of life. You have faced so many experiences.
It's the same. It's because Shaurin Babu, our senior professor, told, look, Abhijit, in the word university, there is a suggestion of the universe, the spread of the universe. And are we pursuing a path within the university that suggests anything so spacious as the universe? So what happens, chronologically, my age has grown. Maybe in terms of small achievements, I've pursued progressed a bit, promotions, this and that, experiences, going abroad, this and that. But still, we have utilized very little of the scope of life. What people are at 25, more or less when they die at 85, not much different. You can see the very famous people, how they are behaving, isn't it? They have not really grown much. Murakami is inviting you to an infinite world, possibility of infinite, a world of infinite possibilities. So, to infinity, what is 16 and what is 23 and what is 56? Zero. Right. So, you are at the doorstep like a Buddha.
Coming back to the questions from Kafka on the Shore, the symbol of the cat, you said the loss of domesticity was what is signified.
But cat lives or dies.
Yeah. But in other novels of Murakami, like in 1Q84, there's this cat town where Tengo goes. Then here in Kafka on the Shore, what is this? How do cats play a huge role in Murakami's writing? Is it a thing from the culture of Japan? Because cats are a big thing in the pop culture of Japan. But in Murakami, in every other story, cats have a different role to play.
In the entire Japanese society, cats are raised.
Why is it so?
Well, there is a myth of Manekoneke. Manekoneko. In front of many shops, you will see a certain kind of cat with their hands like that, as if they are calling. The story is somebody was standing, it was raining, so somebody was standing under a tree and he found a cat is following him. So, responding to it, he progressed, and then the tree was struck by lightning. He would have died, but he was saved by the cat because the cat was following him. Okay. So, cat is something very sacred, very kind to people, and trustable friend. That's how they treat them. So Nomarunda said only once he went to Japan, he loves cats. He has a very famous story also on the Virat. He saw that on a wall, a partition wall between two houses, a cat, very lovable, adorable cat was sitting there. So he was attracted to it. She knew that in Kolkata or even in India, if he approaches a cat and the cat doesn't know him, the cat will immediately flee. This cat was only looked at his face. So I knew what the Japanese society is. He's so assured nothing bad is going to happen to a human being. Right. That's how they treat the cats. So I was full of respect for the society. But at least this much reassurance they have created within them. And right. So cats are there almost in every family. Murakami is particularly very. The cat said, "We are not like the dogs." You remember? So Murakami he wants to bring out a niche, create a niche for the cats in the story somewhere. That is his liking for the cats. But here the cats are very significant. So he says that a good family life to fall back on is an absolute necessity. That's why a cat has a place, what cat stands for. So if you lose such a family system, then life will be extremely poor. Which perhaps he suggests that has happened in the West.
Sir, two more questions from Kafka on the Shore. One is, what is this other world in Murakami stories? Like here we see in the forest, there's this other world that they go to, where Kafka Tamura actually confronts Miss Saiki's younger version. The same happens in most of the stories where there is a travel from one space to another for revelation, for epiphany.
This is even in his Rat trilogy.
Yeah.
That there is a wormhole through which from one set of realities you go to another set of realities. So that set of realities is the idea of metaphysics. That there is no flow of time. Look, in our school history book, we were taught that the young prince Siddhartha, he saw old people die, and so other people are grief-stricken, and whether people can get rid of it, he left home and then obtained his bodhi. So what did he really obtain during bodhi? Never they taught us.
Right.
And they said that human life, Murakami has often in this novel itself he has written, you have been born a human being meant to be struck by sorrow. Human birth is meant for sorrow. That is the Buddhist lesson also. This is inevitable. Sorrow comes out of what? Because of flow of time. What it takes away doesn't come back. Okay? But nothing is taken away. Time conserves everything. But because you are born as a human being, you see time to travel, that's why sorrow is inevitable. Right. Now what do you do with this sorrow? Mono no aware. Longing for things. The beautiful thing you are in possession of, you have lost it. You are extremely sad, grief-stricken. Why? Because of your longing for beauty. You look for further beauties. And beauty is meaningful only when people are longing for beauty. Otherwise, beauty has no existence. Right? So to create ever new things of beauty, you must be grief-stricken. This is Mishma's Sanamundi. I mean, what is the English translation? The Temple of Golden Pavilion. Basically, তুমি কোন ভাঙনের পথে এলে সুতরা, that all the grief actually, because something has been destroyed, now there is a longing for it, and this longing will make me create something. Right. Otherwise, there is no continuity of it. So death is absolutely necessity. Death is the first, not negotiable at all. It is a must condition for creation of beauty. That's why the Western civilization, the Western critics have, very often they say that the Japanese are obsessed with death, idea of death. The Japanese say, because the main point of life is creation of beauty, that's why death is so important. Right. মৃত্যু আপন পাত্রে ভরি বহিছে যে প্রাণ সেই তো তোমার প্রাণ. And the other is মেঘ বলেছে যাবো যাবো, রাত বলেছে যাই, there মরণ বলে আমি তোমার জীবন তরিবার. I recently translated one Kavata novel which has been published from Dhaka. It has possibly come to Calcutta also. There the basic theme is this, that the awareness of death, inevitability of death, makes us long for beauty. Our sexual longing, etc. All that we are craving for, basically we are aware of death, that's all. That's why in this Foucault's pendulum, Umberto Eco says that if you lived forever, you would have stayed there just as a stump of a tree or a piece of stone. Because there is death, to make death great, we try to achieve so many things.
So, one last question from Kafka on the shore. I think this required a bit more time because there's so much that is coming from you.
When I was translating, actually, I felt if we have a department like comparative literature, why not a kind of extension of the scheme where a certain course will not be repeated. Right. From time to time, great novels will be taken up, and 10 months or 11 months, a course will be given by the university because it has the expertise to explain in every aspect that great novel. And Kafka on the Shore can be one. You can actually impart a course of, say, 9 or 10 months, making people aware of the different aspects of Japanese beliefs, social philosophy, their history, how they view their own history.
So, what is the brave new world that Kafka Tamura returns? What makes this brave new world different? Because I'll just give a small reference to why I asked this question. In 1Q84, Tengo wishes to return to the world that he left. The world changed. I'm forgetting the name of the female character, but the world changed. It was a different world once they crossed the staircase. They wanted to come back to the world they left from.
Now, I will approach in a different manner. Why the name is Kafka on the Shore? One of my students has given an excellent, he's much wiser to me, though my student, younger than me, but I learned a lot from him. He said, Murakami always will bring the issue of music somehow in Kafka on the Shores. We know about the chamber music, we know about the symphony. Chamber music is more like a confined room. Symphony is more like an ocean. Right. Two kinds of writers we can perceive, like Tolstoy, like Dostoevsky, or like symphony. The other kind is like Kafka, who is like chamber music. Kafka on the shore means you are freeing him from the confine and making him stand in front of the boundless vision. That's what he's suggesting to the Japanese. Come out of your confinement and see how big is the world.
The painting in his room, the boy sitting on the shore looking at the horizon.
All these are out of his personal pain and crisis. But don't consider yourself just as a Japanese reader and considering myself as unnecessarily influenced by West, etc. There is this big world. My influence should be on the entire world. As a reader also, your influence should be on the entire world. So you are valuable, you are creative, but still Kafka has to come in front of the shore. On the shore.
So I think that's a good note to end the discussion on the Kafka on the Shore. I have now a request, and this is a very earnest request. Besides Kafka on the Shore, my favorite Murakami work is South of the Border, West of the Sun.
I've not read it. I bought it. It is there, but after that I stopped reading Murakami because other writers are there.
Please translate it. Please.
Maybe
because you have translated Men Without Women, you have translated The Elephant Vanishes, you have translated Kafka on the Shore, obviously. This one should be there.
I can always. Translating Murakami is easier. It takes maybe 14-15 months. In case of other writers, I can translate Murakami in 6 months, that much.
It's a shorter work. It's just 120.
Yeah, but Murakami's prose is so lucid, very easy. I mean, he is an enigma. He will remain an enigma. You cannot explain him. You can at the most explain yourself how you are understanding it.
But not him. True. Thank you, sir, for doing this.
It was a pleasure for me. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to discuss these things. Was seeking an opportunity, and again, this synchronicity. It has happened.
The chance encounter.
The chance encounter. It's not chance. If it has a meaning, it will happen.
Thank you, sir. Is there anything that you wish to tell the readers who have not taken up Murakami yet, or maybe have read Kafka on the Shore and Norwegian Wood? Is there any one book that you want to recommend them they should read? It is not popularly read of Murakami.
I was very impressed by this. It was that I was reading of the Rat trilogy. The latest of Murakami that I read. I went to this Hokkaido and came back. That is very important. Now, what I would like to suggest, or my appeal to the readers, please do not read Japanese literature. Japanese literature is now extremely popular all over the world. But when people who are even impressed are discussing, I find them from a very wrong philosophical point of view, they are judging things. East is a different story. East has different philosophy. Once we know those philosophies, these writings are far more enjoyable, more meaningful, and makes us much stronger as reader. But we have to know about the East. Just because we are trained in schools and colleges by the Western mode of this epistemology, there is that is the kind of thing that things do not fail to communicate fully. But you have to know about East. It's about Japanese literature, basic knowledge of Buddhist philosophy is very helpful. I suggest it strongly.
All right, sir. Thank you. I never suggest you guys to subscribe the channel, but if you enjoyed this video, you can obviously come back to this channel when the next video is uploaded. The algorithm will do it for you. One doesn't need to subscribe nowadays. The algorithm automatically pushes the content that you like. Anyways, stay well and read more. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.